Kennedy.
Hello, everyone. This is JJ Humphrey. I am with Bobby Cleveland today, and we're live, elephant in the room. Hey, we're going to talk about what no one else will talk about, and these are the things that we really, as a state, need to discuss, need to address. So today, what we're going to talk about is the criminal justice system, what's happened to our criminal justice system, why things are broken, and maybe some possible solutions. It's a big, big subject, and so we could talk for days on it. Hey, Bob, before we start, I just want to announce that the Oklahoma County GOP is having their Lincoln and Reagan dinner, and it's going to be on February the 25th, 6 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. You can go online and get tickets at okcogop.com. That's okcogop.com. Individual tickets probably go around $250. You'll have to get on there and check me out on that. But I'd encourage you. Steve Bannon is going to be their guest speaker. Boy, I'm going to tell you, if I'm around, I may be trying to go that myself because I do like Steve Bannon. So
yeah, I do too. But hey, I heard Friday, that Moto bought a table for us and invited us to come be his guest.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, boy, we'll have to check that out. Hey, that's going to be at the Cowboy Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And so it's something you put on your calendar you may want to get. Bob, today we're going to discuss criminal justice.
I got a question for you, though.
Lay it on me.
Okay. Last year or 2 years ago, I don't know which, I know we passed a bill that so much money was going to go back in from the state to back to the, I don't know, what was it? What did we vote on? 280, 281?
It's 781
780.
is what I think you're talking about,
Yeah.
Bob. And what happened, 6 years ago, we passed state question 780 and 781. And what 780 did was it dropped most of your possessions to misdemeanor, a lot of your, monetary crimes like theft charges from 1,000 is down as a misdemeanor. I think we've come back and changed that to 500, I believe now. But so what we did, we reduced a lot of crimes. And then the second part of that bill was going to be 781, and it was going to be a funding package that would go to the communities. Because what happens under 780 is all of these crimes stay in your county, and your county's not set up to handle it. And so guess what? If we don't pass the money, then the counties have no way to deal with it. And that's what happened. So 780, I voted no against it because the way they brought it out, it just wasn't good prepared. And like I say, it's really been a train wreck because it has done quite the opposite of what we expected, because we wanted to enhance drug court, get more people in drug court. This is actually, because now it's a misdemeanor. Who's going to go to drug court for 2 or 3 years if you just have 1 year on the misdemeanor?
Was drug court supposed to get some money to help them pay for what they do?
Well, 781 was supposed to put money in your community. I estimate about 30 million. Last year, I had that bill out. I got a bill killed on the floor. I kicked that bill in there on the floor, and I got 100%. And Bob, you know how hard it is to just, and the way we did that bill is really questionable. Most of the time you get some votes against just the way we did it.
Well, who was supposed to get the money?
Well, here's the deal. We have cut 6,000 people. Now, what 780 had said was it would reduce all these people from going to prison. It really hasn't done what they claimed it would, because, Bob, right now, we've got people, probably one of the biggest things that we've got in the state is that we've got basically McGirt, which people need to understand. McGirt is what the tribes have, and they're sovereign tribes. And so what happened, this guy up in Creek Nation sued, or he challenged.
JJ, I'm just asking you, where did the money go?
Well, I'm trying to explain, Bob. It's
Well,
not.
can you cut to the chase there? Tell me
No,
what.
I can't cut to the chase because here's the deal. You got 781. It probably let 2,000 people go. Okay.
Yeah.
McGirt probably let 2,800 go. And then we passed another law that said when we made marijuana legal, we made that retroactive and said we're not going to keep people in prison that basically you wouldn't send to prison anymore. So we let another 1,300 or so go. And there you get the 6,000. So the 780 people are claiming, oh, we've let 6,000 people out of the penitentiary. Not true. Now, where your savings come from, when you let 6,000 people out of the penitentiary, guess what? That's a lot of savings. And so it's about, we estimate about $30 million is what I estimate. So there's the savings. There's what should be going, should have been going 6 years to the communities, has not. So that's the explanation, Bob. It can't be explained simply.
Okay. The community, when you say the communities, what do you mean by the communities?
So what I'm talking about is that you have pro, which is after. So when you supervise somebody in the community, you have pro, that's when you went to prison. You have probation or other community sentencing, drug court, all of these other community sentencing programs, community corrections programs, and that's the community. So we need to kick in for treatment. We need a database that ties all of these together. So there's a lot of things we need from this 781 money that we're not getting present.
So probation and pro should have got $30 million. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying the community, they should divide this up between the communities. Some going to treatment. We need money to support jails because now the jails are having to house more people. So a lot of that money needs to go into our county jails, and our county jails didn't get any of that. And some of it needs to go to probation pro.
So who got the money?
Nobody. We've not put any, and we're breaking. So we've never followed 781. We've never kicked in. Nobody's ever got it. I've got a bill again this year. We've actually gotten a lot better on how we wrote that to say who should be in charge of it, how much money it should be, what the money should be used for. We got a percentage for a database. So we're getting all of that. But the biggest winner out of all that, out of the 780 and all that, has been the district attorneys, because what happened, all of these charges that are now misdemeanor, for the most part over the entire state, guess who gets that supervision?
Well, if they're not getting any money, what difference does it make?
Well, the DA's getting money because they're charging those people on probation $40 a month for probation. And so now they're getting all the cases. But guess what kind of supervision they do, Bob?
They're doing zero supervision.
Do zero supervision. Now there's a few pockets around that do a little supervision, but for most part, they do zero supervision and they collect pretty large money. Bob, last time I checked over a whole across the state, they collected $19 million.
So, $19 million all across the state's not a lot of money.
Well, that's because they don't supervise nobody, and you can't collect much money if you don't do very good. So
they're getting $19 million and doing nothing.
Doing nothing. And here's what, Bob, I looked at their numbers and I did a little Humphrey kind of evaluation on them. Yeah. And from what I've seen, they collected about somewhere between 23 and 25%. When I was in private business, I collected somewhere between 75 and 80%. That's the difference between making that work. But in order to do it, you have to actually supervise. You have to change behavior. You got to get people off drugs. You got to get them working. If you don't do that, you're not going to collect money. And they're not doing it, so they don't collect much.
Well, I mean, you've spoken to the legislature about it, and they don't want to do anything, or they do want to do anything?
Well, here's the thing, Bob. For the last 2 or 3 years, I've raised Cain with them. We actually went back in and funded the DAs because here's what's funny, Bob. There in 2012, there was a case filed where it got appealed by the DAs, and the appellate court actually told them that the $40 probation fee must be used for the actual act of supervision during the actable period of time that the offender was under supervision. Now, short, that's meaning it can't be used to fund your office. It's got to actually be used for supervision. And so they're not using that, so it's illegal.
They're using the money. They're using the money, but they're not using the money as what it's supposed to be used for.
Absolutely. And here's the deal. They're the ones who appealed it, so they know 100% that they can't use it. So when we called them out on it, they quit putting it in their little fund and they created a general fund. And now they kick all their money to the general fund and then they put it back out. So here's the deal, Bob. All they did was create a middleman. They're still illegally using money is what it looks like to me. So we've got to change that, because that right there, the DAs have hijacked our criminal justice system.
Why could that be brought to the Attorney General's opinion and he make an opinion on it?
Well, Bob, you know what? I hate to say it, but the Attorney General is their ancestral sister. They're their ancestral sister. So I did write all that up and send it to the Attorney General. I'm not maybe correct. I am correct. It's illegal. They shouldn't have been doing it. When I caught them on it and called them on it, they know it's illegal. Our Pruitt was the first one I wrote to. I wrote to Hunter. I've not wrote to O'Connor or to Drummond yet. So again, I hit two of them and they didn't want to touch it. They're scared of it. Just like
what I've seen out of Drummond so far, I'm pretty impressed with him.
You know, I will tell you what, he don't seem to have a whole lot of backup on him. And he's a very plain-spoken person. If we're talking about Drummond, it's who you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I tell you, I had a couple of meetings with him, and a lot of people wouldn't like this, but man, he speaks his mind. He speaks pretty plain, and he's pretty blunt, and I like it. I like that.
I know that you would have a hard time understanding that. But
yeah, I'm a little bit reserved
because you don't say what you speak. You kind of mess around with it there a little bit, and same as I do. I don't like to speak up.
Yeah, Bob, I've heard that about you, that you're pretty reserved as well.
Yes, sir. I am.
Don't speak your mind. You know.
Yeah.
You got to learn to speak up, Bob.
All right. So what are we going to do?
Well, Bob, here's the thing. So I've got a plan that actually I was pretty excited that last week. Last week I got called from some of our higher up people and said, "Hey, Humphrey, we've got a lot of problems in criminal justice, and we are thinking that you have that somebody said you have an answer." And I said, "I do have an answer." And so they asked me to come and what do you call it? Like create a PowerPoint. I've got that PowerPoint ready to go. And so here's what we're going to try to do, Bob, is if
was it going to be called the Humphrey plan?
The Humphrey plan. It is the plan.
Okay.
It's going to be called a good plan. So here's the deal. If we started with how we're going to fund everything. So we have drug court, we have DOC probation, we have community sentencing, we have DA probation, and then we have the 780 money. Now, here's one of the problems. We're pretty dysfunctional, and we got 4 different agencies doing community sentencing. What we need to do is combine all of them under one agency. And that way we control, we are communicating with each other, everything. So you'd have a person starting on probation supervision when they couldn't, when they violated all that, we move them through the system, what you call graduated sanctions. And we move them right on into drug court, right on into in-treatment, right on into county jail, and then we could actually graduate them to the penitentiary. Hopefully we keep them from that. But here's what you're looking at. If I'm not mistaken, drug court's about 20, DOC's about 32, community about 12 million. Yeah, all of them are $12 million. And then you got the 780 is about 30. So when you look at all that, you're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 113 million if I add right. And so that is just the money that you could use for your your new community sentencing program. And so what I want to do is there's roughly 25, 27 judicial districts across our state. I want to have judicial districts. I want to set up standards, have DOC having a office over all these that train, have standards, do audits, have interstate compact. So they remain over it, but every district gets money. Now, here's the deal. The DAs have proved that you can actually live on just the probation fees. So when I had a private business, I did very well on probation fees, on drug testing fees, and assessment fees. I kept those down to a reasonable rate and one fee for one person. And so, Bob, it cheapens what they've been paying. And it is, I will promise you, if they just run on that, they can make a good, program out of just that money right there. But it will be used only for supervision. It will be used for supervision purposes. So honestly, if we're collecting at 23, 25%, we go to 75%. Guess what? That's like tripling the money, which would be another almost 60 million to run these programs. That leaves us about 83 million to pay for jails, to pay for a database, to pay for inpatient treatment. And so I use all of that, show how we can do graduated sanctions, how we can use the same sanctions across the state. Everybody's on the same page. Everything works in tandem. And we collect information data across the entire state, across the entire system. So we know, are we being successful? Are we not being successful? And not only is this going to change behavior, not only is it going to address and have accountability, but at the end of the day, it should reduce crime in the state big time.
Well, is the judges still going to do drug court?
Absolutely. So what we would do,
they do a good job. That's what I've
seen.
Heck
yeah. I mean, but here's the deal, Bob. What's wrong with drug court is they're not consistent across the state. And you got some pockets like there in Norman. Y'all got a great program. Oklahoma City, I think, has a good program. But you get out in the rural areas, we've been killed. Our drug court's been killed because 781 is taking the majority of the drug court away. So what you're seeing, where you had drug court programs across the state, now they're closing them. And so what I want to do is go back in and let that district decide, hey, if you want drug court, you can fund it. Here's the money. If you want a community sentencing program, okay. But there's going to be some standards on it. You're not going to be willy-nilly hire your girlfriend. Judges hiring their best friend, their girlfriends who ain't trained or have any kind of training background. You're going to have standards. You're going to have training. You're going to have education or background in that. And so we set that up across the state consistently. Each district decides what they want. And again, you got this office over them, making sure they're doing. So before they get all of this other money, they're going to have to make sure we meet standards and that they follow evidence-based practices. They follow the right practices. And we do that across the state. Bob, what we can also do is right now, our courts are covered up trying to collect money. If they will make that a condition of probation and have that supervision tied in with that, so that officer can go, hey, have you paid your court costs and your fines and all that? If they haven't, they start, why haven't you? You come in here, an extra report, show us that you're doing this, getting it done. If that officer will document all that, so by the time that gets back in front of the court, because when you come in and you hadn't paid, the judge has to show that they've tried to work with you to get that paid. Well, if the probation officer's already showed that, then when they get in there, the judge can put them in jail and say, hey, you're not even making an effort, put you in jail. I'll guarantee you, when they start doing that consistently across the state, guess what happens? You start collecting money. But they have to make it to where it's a reasonable amount of money. Right now, they've got cases all over the state. So you might have one guy have 5 cases, and he's supposed to pay $100 here, $100 here, $100 there, $40 here, $40 there, $40 here. And hey, they may have $500 or $600 in cost and fines. No way these guys are going to be able to pay that, Bob. So
on 780, 781.
Yes, sir.
It hasn't worked, but we let 6,000 people out of the prisons. Is that correct?
Well, Bob, that's what I was explaining. Probably 2,000 on
2,000. Well, we let 2,000 people out, but we were going with the same budget.
Yeah, and that's the whole deal, Bob, because when you look at McGirt, when you look at 780, and when you look at the marijuana thing, we've reduced from about 29,000 down to somewhere, we're saying 6, but it's really probably closer to 7 or 8, but down to 21,000. I think we're at 29. We went to about 21 right now.
Right. We got 21
So
plus.
that's the savings, Bob. And that's what nobody is setting that, up saying is, look, and again, here's the argument. You have fixed costs, you have variable costs. And what that means, Bob, is just because we released that many people, we didn't close down a whole bunch of prisons, although we did close a couple. And if you close a couple, that's pretty big savings. So we did close down some prisons, but you got a majority of the same prisons here. So you didn't save, you know what I'm saying? It's not all savings. And so, but we know that you do feed people, you do clothe people, you have medical, you have transport. So again, there's some savings there.
Right.
We estimate about $30,000. I mean, 30 million, not 30,000.
30 million.
Yeah.
But yet DOC's budget is remained the same.
Yes.
The last 2 years.
So what I've recommended is taking that money and not even go through DOC, just take it out and send it direct to, right now we're wanting mental health to oversee that. I do want to come back and have DOC as the overseeing.
Speaking about mental health, the other day I was in Norman. I was over on the east side. In the east side there where the what's that place there in Norman where the mental health institution was at one time? What's it called? They got about 100 acres in there. They had the mental health facility. But across from there, right behind some houses, an addition, they got all the housing addition has a wooden fence up, but there must have been 100 tents set up out there of homeless. And the biggest darn mess you ever seen.
What we've got to do is we got to make 780 work. Bob, you back?
I didn't go anywhere.
Well, it popped you off our screen for a second.
No, you popped you off.
Oh, I saw you gone. So
no, I saw you. It popped you.
So you were talking about mental health in Norman right there.
Right.
What was you going to say about mental health?
Well, I'm saying that mental health people out there that's just got all those tents and trash and stuff sitting out there. Something's got to be done about that. I mean, I feel sorry for those people that live in that neighborhood and they have to have all those people living behind them.
Yeah, Bob, I've got a bill. Again, that's a huge problem, and we're seeing a homeless problem. That may be something we need to talk on this air that nobody wants to talk about.
Well, that's a mental health problem too.
Yeah, because what happens, the drug problems, the mental health problems, the needles, all the problems that causes in the city. And so I do have a bill to say that the city actually can come and remove those people from from places like underpasses, places like the mental health facility, places like the courthouse.
Well, here's the thing though. The mental health, the homeless people, they don't want to move into a home where they got a home they could get into every night because they got to follow rules, regulations. They'd rather live out there in their tents and do what they want to do. Did something happen to us? You're frozen, dude.
Talk about Bobby back with us.
Yeah.
Keeps kicking you off, or on my end, it's kicking you off.
Well, on my end, it kicks you off. So what I'm saying is those homeless people, from what I understand and what I've read and what I've studied, is they don't want to go to a actually facility because then they got to follow rules. They can't have those needles. They can't have all their drugs and everything they're doing.
Well, and that's the problem, Bob. Nobody holds them accountable. And we just have laws like this 780 law that just reduces everything to a misdemeanor, but it doesn't answer what happens if a person just continues law breaking, just like these homeless people. Nobody wants to go after homeless people and try to be cruel to homeless people. But when you offer them opportunity to get off the street, prove their life, and do things, to better themselves, and they refuse and they want to sit right down there and be an obstruction and cause really harm to others, then we have to be, as a society, we have to be smart enough to say, enough of that. And we've got to say that we're going to hold them accountable, and we've got to get them moved out from there. 780, we have to start saying, you know what, we're not going to let you get 50, and there's people get misdemeanor after misdemeanor after misdemeanor drug charges. Bob, that's not good for the community. That's not good it keeps drugs on our streets. So it's not good for, kids and all the people who have an opportunity. It creates more opportunity for drugs, and it's not good for the person using. If that person continues to use, that's going to be bad on their health. It's going to eventually land them in the penitentiary. It's addiction. So we've got to address it. We've got to change, we've got to try to change behavior. And what we've allowed is the DAs to hijack the system to make money, to fund their offices. And guess what? Nobody's even trying to correct the problem.
Well, so, have we gave the DAs more money?
Come back and get a couple more things.
You got to pay attention. You got to pay attention.
Yeah.
Has the state given the DAs any extra money?
Yes, we did. In fact, when I called them out on that a couple of years ago, we turned around and gave them $19 million, is my understanding, to get them out of the supervision business. And that's what I say, Bob, what they did. And I told them at the time, that's what's going to happen. They'll take you $19 million and keep right on doing, change it a little bit, say, now it's legal. It's not, in my opinion. But what they did is quit having funds, taking direct funds out, and they started sending all that to a general fund. So now it's a general fund, and out of the general fund, then they go back and fund their offices. What's the difference? They just created a whole fund and went right back to doing what the appellate court told them.
Have you ever tried to get the DAs to come up to Capitol and have a meeting?
Oh, I have had, and it got way ugly, Bob. But here's the deal: they finally had to admit, we were almost up to blows. Seriously, we were across the table almost up to blows, and I stopped and said, well, now just hold on, let's calm down. I said, let's just cut to the chase, And I actually said, let's just cut to the nut cutting. But here's the deal. I said, how much are y'all using to fund your office? And man, they whooped out $19 million, thrown it down there, had it ready to go. And I laughed and I said, well, now that's funny, because two of the main guys that filed that lawsuit were sitting in that room. And I said, if there ain't but two guys know that I'm telling the truth, the appellate court told you can't do that you cannot fund your office from this money. And I said, but before y'all answer that, I said, I want y'all to think about them monetary charges that y'all charge people. They always got the same. So Bob, when you look at it, they got to have elements of a charge. So some of the elements of monetary charges are generally that you knowingly, willfully, intentionally, maliciously did the act. And so that's what I told them. I said, tell me if the appellate court tells you 100% on appeal directly to you that you can't use this money, that it's illegal to use it to fund your office, and you intentionally, willfully, maliciously, knowingly continue to use that money, what is that? And they turned around and walked out.
Okay, so what are you doing now? What's your plan?
So here's the plan, and here's how we're going to solve it. Basically, I am introducing an ideal to take all this money, all these agencies, combine them under one. Does it mean we won't have drug court? It means that judicial district will run
agency,
their drug court.
Got you. Well, now you're the only person at the Capitol talking about this. Is that right?
Pretty much. Ain't nobody else looking for a plan. Every year people talk about that our criminal justice system is really poor. They talk about 780 needs fixed, but nobody makes an attempt to fix it. Bob, they pass a little law here, a little law there, kind of a Band-Aid. Hey, we're going to get a driver's license for people. That's a good bill, man. In fact, Marilyn Stark and Brian Hill have worked on that.
You're talking about a driver's license for when a guy gets out of prison. He would be ready for a driver's license right then instead of waiting until after he's out.
Bob, it's common sense. I mean, me and you can both agree on that. Why would they?
I think we've had that several times. I remember we had a bill like that.
We've tried to fix that, and every time we'll pass a bill and they just keep doing whatever they want to. So again, we need some accountability in this process. But Bob, why should they have to get out and go take a DUI school? You've got them right there in prison. We could be doing DUI schools in prison. We could be doing driver's license in prison. We ought to do more training, technology schools so that they can get a job. One of the girls we've been discussing now went through a kind of a barber school or a hairdresser school while she's in prison. Guess what? She gets out. She's able to make a living.
Actually, the day she got out, she was working. She went right straight to work.
Bob, we could be doing that with all kinds of programs, whether it be, plumbing, electricity.
They're enlarging that program at Mabel Bassett, where it has been just a cosmetology class. Now they're going to go in where they're going to do men's haircuts.
Sure. And in fact, if you remember when we were out there the other day at that prison that me and you went and visited, those guys are cutting hair. And again, when they get out, they're certified. They can go right into cutting hair. And Bob, right now, hey, you don't have, as far as men, a actual barber. A lot of men go to hairdressers, hairstylists. If you kind of like mine, you don't need, ain't much they can do. I tried to get him feather it the other day. I asked him feather it, and he didn't feather it. So
I figured he'd have some chicken feathers.
You know what,
chicken man?
He charged me. He told me what he's going to charge me as a finder's fee. He said he'd charge me a finder's fee, and not even a haircut. But Bob, we can have people trained, and that's what we ought to be looking at the penitentiary. Now, Bob, I also got an idea. So I want to take away probation and put it to the community in each judicial district. But I want to take, right now we've got an agency, Probation Pro. And if you looked at Texas has just parole, and then they've got a system just like what I'm talking about set up around their judicial. And that way you have more accountability because it's right there in your community. The money's coming in, you know how it's being spent. You can control it. Not all these agency spending 90% of the agency on, agency administration.
But what you're doing is what we do at what's being done at the Capitol. When I was there, it goes on forever. Is you got a problem, but they don't have a way to solve the problem. So what you've got a way to solve our problem.
Yes.
And they're going to talk to you about that. Let me ask you a question. If you're on an ankle bracelet monitor, and you're out and you're on an ankle bracelet monitor, do they monitor every single person? I mean, have a little TV screen up there or something that shows them on every single person?
Here's the deal, Bob. It's according to what kinds you get. So there's some cool technology out there. Unfortunately, Oklahomans had a habit of going and buying the cheapest stuff, used equipment, cheap equipment, and so what normally Oklahoma, now I think they've tried to move to a better system. But what I've seen, a whole lot of their system was what it reports a day late. So when you walk in and you got 10 of these people on a GPS monitor, you're not seeing what they did at the same time it's being done. You're coming in a day late. You look at this form. Well, golly, man, here's this guy's got a violation. Here's this guy got a violation.
Okay, all right. I understand that. So here's a question. What I was reading an article the other day, what some states are doing. They've got away from monitoring everybody. Because everybody doesn't need monitoring, as I know. If you got 100 people, not every one of them is going to go out there and try to move around, and try to sneak around and do this and do that. They figure out who the good ones are, leave them alone, and concentrate on the ones that are bad.
Well,
we're not doing that.
Here's what I would do, Bob, and this is what I'm proposing. Let's look at the inmate population that we could put out in the community. Leave them inmates. Put them on a real-time GPS. It tells you right this minute what they're doing. Contract with the company who can watch all 1,000 of these, or 2,000 or 4,000, however many we kick out, but they can watch them real time. And so these monitors are like your cell phone, Bob. You ever been talking and your cell phone dropped? I know it has, because you drop me all the time, So anyways, that's the same way these GPS, but it'll pick back up in just a few seconds. So if you're an
But what I'm
officer,
saying though is you don't need to monitor every single person.
we can contract that with the company. The
Let them
company
decide
can
that.
contract that, and it costs very little. And what it does, Bob, it puts the liability on the company. So if the company misses that, liability is to them. Then the company can call you, the officer, when there's a serious violation, like what you're talking about.
Well, I remember they was looking at there's monitoring some people, and they showed that this individual was in the same vicinity where a bank was robbed. They come back and monitor a little bit more. He's in the same vicinity again where the bank was robbed, but it wasn't happening that very day. They caught it several days later.
Well, what I'm wanting, you can catch that right real time right now. And think about this, Bob. If you was take one officer and give them 20 inmates on this program, if that inmate is, if we're paying $63 a day per inmate, multiply that times 20. And then that officer may cost us, $164 a day. That monitor may cost us $6 a day. You got to figure rent in a car. But at the end of the day, guess what? When you multiply 63 times that a day, and then you figure out what all those expenses we're making, I figured if we did a huge program that we could save up to $85 million. Now, we may not want to run. That may be too ambitious for the state for what I'm talking about. But what it would do, Bob, if we would put a lot of people on this type of monitoring, leave them inmates, that way you don't have to. If they come in and they're dirty on the UA, guess what you do? You take them right back to higher security because they're an inmate. And so what that does, it frees up all of these beds that we need to maybe pull back from private prisons because they're doing terrible. Guess what? It would open up the beds to do that. It would, this, Bob, that we have a problem with the correctional officer staffing, nursing staffing, all of these staffing levels. So if we drop that a significant number, it helps with that problem. So it saves the state money. It puts these people out with real accountability. It lets these people get adjusted back into the community. If they can't adjust, we bring them right back if they're not doing what they're supposed to. So there'd be a lot of movement, but it would open up the beds and it would hold them responsible, and we could get people back in community under real supervision. It would be a big time cost saver. It'd be a big time control on bed population. It would be a big time control on staffing level shortages. So
how many
again,
people is it going to take to do this? How many people does it take to make this
well,
work?
here's still what's cool, Bob, is that I just fixed your community correction program like we were talking about.
Right.
So I would just take all those probation officers and turn them into parole officers. And again, you look, this is what they got in Texas. So I'm not, creating a new wheel. So you take all of those officers. How do you pay for them? Well, by letting these 20 inmates go, guess what? If each one of them supervised 20, that's not a whole lot. Now they may have a few more pros or something like that, but those 20 will more than fund that officer, their vehicle, and again, they could leave their office out of the prison, or with these judicial districts, we could contract and give them a place in their office to, they can help pay a little rent, and they could use their drug testing. So we can do contracts with these communities to let these parole officers house, to let these parole officers use, treatment things and all of those kind of things that we could,
well, with
together. But like I say, it saves millions and millions of dollars, and it holds 10 times. And I don't know about you, Bob, but there's a lot of people in penitentiary. I'm not worried about it being penitentiary if you can get them out under real supervision. But again, I want somebody on top of them, and we can have it 24/7 day. Now, we don't want to let people out that we're scared of. That's the people that we want.
And the non-violent one, but that always doesn't hold true. Sometimes you're going to have.
And Bob, I think if we send somebody to penitentiary, they ought to have to stay for a minute just to get a reality check on them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm not talking about just taking somebody one day, turn them around, and letting them leave. But again, Bob, we could even look at maybe this being alternative, if you're in the community and we can't get you corrected, this could be another method that we could use to.
Well, if you don't talk about prisons, what if we had better cameras in the prison? We wouldn't have to have as many officers. It'd be a lot safer. We have so many dead spots in our prison facilities, and our cameras are so antiquated. And again, I think they want to buy the cheap stuff.
Bob, here's the deal. Oklahoma has not come into the 21st century, whether we're talking about community corrections. So one of the things that if we pass 780, I've already built a certain percentage of 781 that would go to a database, and it would put all of us on the same page in Oklahoma. It would collect information, whether we know we can use mechanical thinking. There's some new artificial intelligence methods that don't only just collect data, it doesn't only analyze data, but it produces solutions. Tells you things like, hey, heroin went up 40% in Tulsa. You got a heroin problem. Here's how you address it. So again, that's on the front side. Absolutely. There's things that we could be doing. We could have some technology to make sure that cell phones in prison are not working. We need to have technology to pick up these drones. They're flying drones over our facilities. They're dropping dope. There's ways that we could deal with that. We need to have cameras that are.
Biden can shoot them down.
Well, no, he missed first. He can't even hit a balloon, Bob. I mean, they missed the balloon, and it took them a week to get it. So it floated across the whole United States. So again, we can't let it float across 5 or 6 penitentiaries before we blow them down.
Well, that's something that seems like every state has that problem. We're not unique in that.
Yeah, Bob. Here's the deal, and you hear the governor talk about top 10. Wanting to be in top 10. I always played where second place was loser. I don't care about top 10. I don't care about second place. I want to be number one. And the things that I'm talking about are things that nobody else.
If they're going to talk about being number one in our prison system, they got it. They're a long ways off, because I think our prison system is probably about as bad now as it's ever been.
Well, Bob, you can't leave
things going on
the same. You can't just keep doing the same thing, kicking the can down the road and think it's going to change.
We're doing the same people monitoring it, and think things going to change. We've got the same people.
Here's the deal. I think our new director is doing a lot. I'm excited. He put a guy in that is shaking it up. We're seeing people get gone that should have been gone 10 years.
How long ago? What, been a whole year on one particular prison? We've been complaining about the thing that's going on there.
Right.
And they did nothing for a whole year. Said we didn't know what we was talking about. Am I correct?
Bob, but our new guy come in, and again, he shook it up. And,
one day he found the problem. Yeah. And nobody else there could find a problem. The problem we got in there, these guys don't want to find a problem. They all cover up for everybody.
Well, and some of those people were good friends of mine, and I was reluctant to see them, get hammered, but some of them had to be hammered. That's just the way it goes. I hope that they correct themselves. I think it'll make them better supervisors, what he's doing. And again, but they're doing that across the whole prison. It ain't one prison. It's all over.
But they did catch the problem. Let me ask you a question. Since we're talking about prisons, and we'll get back onto your justice reform. There was a guy at your prison who, in an academy, they asked questions about, hey, what do you guys think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about our uniforms? Well, this guy said he didn't like the uniforms. He made some comments about the uniforms.
Yeah, Bob, it wasn't he just didn't like them. He actually made comments on how they were unsafe, how they weren't good uniforms.
Right.
I mean, he had some very good
quality of them.
They should have listened to.
And then they got in trouble.
Yeah.
But the poor guy, they rode him so bad after that, he finally quit. But he has 96 hours of overtime. They didn't pay him for it. He had to go sell his four-wheelers. He had to sell, a lot of stuff out of his own personal items to sell to be able to make it, to get by. Well, that's how dirty they are.
That's a culture in the penitentiary that's got to be changed. It's how they've always used to treating their employees. You're going to have to change that. The way you change that is right down there at training. When people walk in, you have training. And again, supervisors need to be able to listen. You know what, Bob? I remember one time talking to the director and telling him about what I was talking about is if you're tribal, who pays your medical? And he said, well, I don't know. I guess tribal. I said, well, if you come to prison, who pays your medical if you're tribal? And he goes, Humphrey, where you come up with this? I said, Director, I talked to your people who work on the bottom ground, boots on the ground, and they got great ideas if you'll just listen to them, you know? And so again, that's what we've got to do. Everybody we need to be able to weed out the good. My old brother says that a cow's smart enough to chew up the grass, eat the grass, spit out the weed. You know, we need to listen, spit out the weed, chew up the grass, and eat it. So again, we have to start. But Bob, I have learned this being up there. You know, when I first went up there, I wanted to change this whole thing at one time, and it's just too much for people to handle, too much for them to hear. And I've been working 6 years, pieces. And the other day they called me up and said, hey, are you ready to present this whole thing? Now, I don't know whether we'll actually do it, but at least I've got the people who can get this done. And I think it's in such a bad shape. We got to do something. I think everybody.
No question it's in a bad shape. There's absolutely no question about that.
Yeah,
but what else we got to do in justice reform?
Well, Bob, I think that one of the things that I'd like to see prisons is like we talked about. I would like to see them put in technology in most of your prisons. I'd like to see them that if you don't want to help yourself, you can go over here to this prison and do your time day for day. But if you want to come over here and help yourself, we'll give you time credits. We will give you earned credits. We will give you extra training on budgeting and all those kind of things. Again, we want to address drug problems, but you know what? Number one thing to change criminal behavior, substance abuse behavior, put these people to work. And that's what we need to be working on. Then we need to turn around and do these judicial. We got to
wait a second, right there. We can't do that because we don't have enough officers.
Well, Bob, I think that if you do what I'm talking about and you reduce the number of incarcerated people, all of a sudden you do have quite a few more officers. I think if we will get pay up, I think the treatment, I think the uniforms, I think we can recruit people.
How many people can we hire in 1 year to send to academy?
Do what?
How many people can we send to academy in 1 year?
Right now, you got about 60 in an academy. I think you can do about 4 academies a year, so about 240. So if they do one good year, it'd really make a heck of a difference.
Yeah, it would make a difference, but it's not going to solve the problem. They're still way short.
Well, Bob, you can't solve it overnight. You just got to keep chipping.
Okay, they're going to get they're so-called going to get these new uniforms they're talking about now. But to get the new uniforms, how long is it taking us to get these present uniforms we got them out? They said it's going to take a year. We still didn't get everybody in uniforms.
We've been trying 3 years. We got a $43 million raise last year. We found that. So our listeners know that we found that actually in the Department of Corrections budget. It did not cost the state of Oklahoma one dime. It did not cost the Capitol to appropriate one dime. It was in their budget. We found it.
What did they do after they got their raise? What happened?
Well, they started cutting just like they had before, just the same way we found it.
They stopped hiring.
Right. We're right back to where we were before because they stopped hiring and the state's still paying them the same number of employees. And so, again, that's how we found it before. They went back to doing the same thing. I do believe this new director is aware of that. I think he's trying to address.
I don't. I've had two wardens tell me within the last month that they got 7 or 10 pins, number of pins. And they've got people ready to fill them, but they won't let them fill them.
Well, Bob, but you sit right there and with me on one of the top executives in the state, and they said all these wardens can. So again, there's a miscommunication happening.
They just got to ask for them. They just got to ask for them.
That's not
true. Ask for them, they still can't get them.
Right. I mean, you understand that, and it's this huge problem in the Department of Corrections. Our listeners not going to understand like me and you understand how big of a threat it is because of the shortage. We were 750 to 900. They said 950 officers short. Now, guys, if you're going in to a penitentiary and you're 950 officers short, you want to talk about problems, overtime issues, working all the time, but also safety issues. Again, we don't have the cameras that we need and some of the other safety equipment. So it's a huge, huge issue. But I can tell you that we got a $43 million raise for them. We've gotten 5 raises in the last 3 or so years. We've worked on safety equipment. We're continuing to work on cameras. So, Bob, we're making a huge difference. We're not getting there as fast as I'd like to. The new guy they put over in charge, I think he's making a heyday difference. He's making hay now. He's making change. And
No question, no question about that. The very thing that it just amazes me how he can go to a prison in one time and see the things that we've been talking about for a year, and the other guy,
you know why,
couldn't say anything wrong.
You know why? Because he gets out of his car. He don't go down there with an entourage. He leaves the administration in their administrative building. He walks out there on that unit. The guy knows what he's doing, so he can walk down to them showers and see nasty. He can walk down to the cafeteria. He can tell whether people are doing anything. He can go over at DU and he can see what's going on. So you got a guy who actually knows what he's doing. And that's what we need. We need that in the prisons, and we need that in community corrections. We've got to find some people who know how to make community corrections work. It's not brain surgery. It's not sending somebody to the moon, but we need educated. We need experienced. We need the methods. We need the new technology and people who know all of that. And hopefully we get some people who can marry the community and the prison together and make it work, whether they're coming in, whether they're going out. It all works to try to change these people's behavior. You're not going to change all of them, but work on changing behavior. Hey, Bob, I do want to remind our listeners about that Oklahoma County GOP Lincoln and Reagan dinner on February 25th.
Bannon's going to be there.
And it's Bannon. Yes, it's Steve Bannon.
We're having some technical difficulties.
System. So
hey,
we got
Representative, why don't we go ahead and shut it down, because we're having so much difficulties here.
Yeah, we keep popping on and off and on and back.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and shut it down for the day and see what's wrong with it. And
yeah, but Bob,
take us home.
Yeah, I do want to encourage people. So right now I've got a bill called 781. It's for the funding that me and Bob's been talking about. It actually.
That gummit.